Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nilay Patel and I'm the owner, designer, and educator here at SilverSilk and more, bringing you guys fantastic projects as always. I'm excited about today's project. I get to delve into a happy place that is a company that is very near and dear to my heart, which is Jesse James Beads. Love everything that they come up with. They have some fantastic mystery boxes, their strands, the color stories that they put together. It's always super inspiring and just leads to really great ideas, especially when it comes to using Silver Silk with it. So for today's project, I've got something very simple to put together, but really it is just a emphasis and a play on how color can be used, especially when we're getting into a season of colors, which is spring. Super excited. So I am going to go ahead and just pan down to my camera, to my desk here, and we're just going to get right into it. So let's start off with some tools that we'll need for today. Here I've got my pile of tools, but I'll go over them one at a time. We have got a pair of round nose pliers. This will be used for making loops. We'll be using a pair of flat nose pliers. This will be used for crimping silver silk findings. Okay, we have got a pair of chain nose pliers, which is pretty much used for everything else. We've got a pair of nylon jaw pliers. This is going to be used for straightening out craft wire, which we'll be using for constructing this design. And finally, last but not least, we've got a pair of wire cutters that'll be used for cutting craft wire, but also silver silk. It sounds like a lot of tools, but I think I'm speaking to the choir here with like I'm just a tool nerd, and so I love using stuff that makes the technique a lot easier to put together and construct. Now, before I get to the actual materials of the project, I did want to give a quick shout out to the actual theme of this month, which is La Dolce Vita, the Sweet Life. I just got a really great sense of Mediterranean and vacation via coastal vacation vibes from this. And you got the fruits, you've got this really great shot of Santorini, some Tuscany in there. So I don't know, maybe it's just putting that thought process in my head of, hey, maybe I should go on vacation. But you know what? In the meantime, I can do that with this particular mystery box. I'm just going to quickly flash through some of the beads that come with this particular bundle of beads in the Jesse James Beads mystery box. The Dolce Vita collection, which is beautiful reds and creams, really plays off that wine aspect and color. We've got this beautiful green box. Y'all know how I feel about green, and it's just a beautiful palette overall. Okay, what else comes in it? You get this really cute little tube of Mediterranean lemonade. I call it limoncello, much like the knitted wire that I'm going to be showing you here soon. But it's a beautiful mix. It's got some blues and, as you can see, some yellows in there as well. You've got some really great components with this as well, weaving, basket weaving in Rome, which these names sort of inspired the custom silver silks that I made to go with this box, which you can, by the way, grab from silversilkonline.com. And I am apologizing for the redundancy of that. Let me just take that off real quick. That way you guys can see the beads better. But these airing components, I mean, hello, Barcelona for sure. And then it doesn't stop there. You get the Santorini Beach Mix, which I made a couple of custom pipe chains to go along with this particular colorway. So pretty. And you get a great strand of beads. This one is called Tomato Girl Summer. So cute. Definitely gives me that like market vibe to it, with the porcelain and the glass decorative bead that you see here. That's absolutely stunning. And you get some chain to work with, which is what we're going to be using for today's project. This kind of reminded me of laurel leaves, and so I wanted to sort of play off that for the name and theme of this design that I'm going to be putting together. You get a full, looks like foot maybe foot and a few inches of this. So really the idea is to cut it up into sections that will be then stringing on for our centerpiece. I would recommend cutting this up into a length of this right here, which is probably about 2 inches, maybe 2.5. I think I kind of note it different in the video description, which, by the way, if you're wondering what materials and need a more concise list, you can definitely check out the video description. But I think once upon like, I see stuff in real life, the numbers tend to change a little bit. But again, the idea here is to help you guys get it to a point where you can construct it, and I'm sure you'll add your own twist to it. Okay, so we got about, an inch and a half there to a little bit longer of a length, and you'll need 2 of these, by the way. So whenever you grab this chain, just cut it up into these size sections. They stagger, and so you don't have to be super precise as long as they're graduating in size. So you'll need 2 of them that are about an inch and a half to 2 inches, and then 2.5 to 3 inches, and then 3.5 to 4 inches. And that really just depends on how long you want your centerpiece to be. I have it at a shorter length at the moment, but you can always add a little bit of length. And if you've got any chain left over, you can absolutely use it for another project. So maybe I was being a little bit conservative with my amount there. Um, so that's one of the materials that you'll need from this beautiful Jesse James Beats mystery box. And oh, the last thing I wanted to show you, which is not part of this officials material list, but it does come with some leather cord, excuse me, if you're wanting to just use it as a stringing medium for some of the beads. But that's sort of the shout out I wanted to give for the contents of the box. As for the actual materials for this project, other than the chain, you will also need some silver silk, which I wanted to talk through with you guys. This is the limoncello color, which is new to the leather knitted chain cord family. And it is a metallic golden yellow leather cord that has gold knitted on top. It's not as like bright, showy in real life, I would say. I'm pointing a light right onto it, so of course it's going to look bright. But I was very pleased at how mute the yellow color turned out. And I think it's just a really great neutral chain to throw onto I don't know, a dazzling color palette, if you will. So you'll need a couple links of that. And what I've got here is probably close to 7 inches, which is going to get me a relatively shorter necklace. We're talking probably about an 18-inch necklace at the most. Um, I think this is the part where you can kind of decide on if you want a shorter necklace or a longer one. The knitted wire is intended to use as a necklace rope. So the centerpiece, while it may stay the same exact size, which is going to be about the 5 inches mark, the actual necklace rope, which is the silver silk, you can add on an inch or two if you're wanting to do a longer length, or you can always subtract it. I would start with adding on more and then subtracting, because you can always cut away, but you can not really add on, as they say. So again, for an 18-inch length necklace, I'd probably do about 7 inches on each side. So have a couple of those. You'll need some craft wire. You can use whatever company to your preference that makes craft wire, as long as it's 20 gauge and in the gold color. You'll be good to go. I have a length of about probably 8 or 9 inches. This is one of those things that I just like to have a little extra to have on hand. I'll probably end up cutting some of it away, and that's totally okay. What else? We've got some findings. You'll need 4 total silver silk single strand end caps. As you can see, I've attached jump rings to each one of them, and I went ahead and attached the lobster claw, which is also part of the materials list, onto one of the end caps. These end caps are specially designed for silver silk. They have little teeth inside that grasp onto whatever chain you're putting into it. Really works best is capture or pearlesque chain. However, you can absolutely use the leather knitted cord and the teeth will still grasp onto it without any problems. So, just little nod to Silver Silk end caps and how amazing they are. By the way, they are custom plated. Specifically, I work with a factory to ensure quality assurance, and it's got about 5 layers of plating on it that get it to the color and the tarnish resistant capability that it has. My fingerprints are happen to be all over this, but it's quite polished in real life. um, so you'll need 4 of those plus a clasp, and then, of course, you'll just need an arrangement of beads. I went ahead and got some started here. What I did was I took different beads from different mixes and sort of just made up my own pattern. Clearly, there's a ton of beads in here, and one can go real crazy with this, and that is encouraged. I just pulled out the creams and olives and kind of went with the, I don't know, natural vibe to it. I just now noticed that one of my end caps is backwards, or one of my bead caps, excuse me. So I'm going to flip that around. And this is where you can start to add in your chain links. So after you get a pattern of a couple beads, plus like a little spacer bead in between, and have bead caps go ending on each side of the bead, you can start to add in your chain links according to the size. So you'll start from the shortest chain length to the longest. And remember back where we cut the 1 inch, and then we have the slightly longer one, and then the longest one. This particular chain has soldered rings on it. And so whenever you cut the rings out, you do start to lose a little bit of the leafiness. However, because the rings are soldered, they're not gonna slip out and they're not going to have that seam that's going to come apart. So I think that that's kind of a neat aspect to this design. I'm gonna go ahead and find that top link and string it right on. And I'm gonna follow that up with a bead. And I found this really cool little brown crystal within the mix. So I'm just gonna add that right in. I'm not gonna space this part out too much. I wanna find beads that are approximately 10 millimeters or smaller in size so that the cluster of my laurel leaves stay pretty full. Okay, and then I'll simply just add on another cluster of chain and another bead. And on this side, by the way, I just made a quick little loop. This is not my final loop because we'll be doing a wire wrapped one. But this is just so my beads don't fall out. And sometimes using those bead stoppers is annoying. So I just made a little loop at the end. Okay, so once I've strung my little green bead on, it's beautiful metallic sheen to it. And really, this is the beauty of Jesse James beads is that you can really just pick up any beads and they automatically match with each other within the palette range, and it just makes it so much easier to get to designing. In the same vein as how Silver Silk works, because the knitting and the work and detail that's behind it is done already, and so you just get to put stuff together and make it look cool. So, we'll just string our pattern backwards now. So I've got 2 of those beads, that are sandwiching a long length of laurel chain, and now, I've got that brown crystal on, and so now I'll just string on this green bead with bead caps on either end. Okay. The bead caps are really cool because they just add a little extra intricacy to the design. Oh, whoops, I forgot to add 1 more chain link to even this out. Okay, there. Now all these should be strung, hopefully in order. Oh, no, whoopsie, I made a big mistake here. I have 2 of the smaller ones out to the side. It's sometimes hard to see which length I'm working with here, but let me do this real quick and swap this order. Totally my bad. It's a silly little thing, but I'm so glad I caught it now. And the good thing is this is the stage where you can edit, take out whatever you need to, restring stuff, play with the design. You can do all the things and customize this however you prefer. You might not like this green and gold colorway. You might want red and gold, or you might want one of the other colors that are introduced in the palette. I mean, the possibilities are truly just endless. Okay, so that looks much nicer and better. I'm gonna go ahead and just lay this down to look at it, and it should look like this. You could see that there's a distinct triangle that's making a point in my design. And now I'll just continue stringing on the rest of this. Last bead cap. And now we'll just make a wire wrap loop here at the end. So I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and I'm going to go down about 1.5 inches into my wire and just go ahead and fold that against the plier nose, but also away from me so that it is now bent at a 90-degree angle. There, now it's 90 degrees. And what I'm going to do is come through with my round nose pliers. You'll want to grasp one end into the elbow of your um, angle of your wire bend there, and then one of the nose tips on top. And just go ahead and rotate that wire to point toward you. Shift sides on your plier so that now you've got one loop, one nose inside the loop and the other on top. And then fold this wire back around away from you so that whenever you look at this face front, you should have what's somewhat of a symmetrical loop. It's got a little neck bend there. And what you're ready to do now is coil it. So what I do is I grasp the entire loop with my chain nose pliers and I just coil this all the way around. You might need pliers to help assist, and you might not. I don't know. Just depends on your comfort. But if you need to, you can kind of get in there and sort of detail out the coils. I just do a couple wraps before I cut it away. Ideally, you'll want to cut at an angle. Sometimes that doesn't always happen. The idea here is to take the last part of it and wrap it into the stem, as you can see there, so that it's just nice and clean and doesn't poke out. So this will ensure a very secure hold that you don't have to worry about stuff slipping out. And we'll be attaching jump rings to it, so we'll definitely need the extra security. All right, on the other end, I'm going to grasp the tip, using the tip of my pliers, the stem of the wire, and we're going to just basically do the same thing again. That little extra space is going to be used for our coiling. So here again, I'll just go a little faster. Just grab the elbow, point it back toward us, let go, reframe it into the pliers, and twist it back around away from you. If you've got a little bit of an oval shape, you can actually squeeze it together just a bit to get it nice and round again. And after you're satisfied, you can definitely grasp onto the entire loop and then start to coil. Again, just doing a couple coils. You don't want to get too carried away. And you also need a little bit of space because what we're going to do is actually curve this here in a second. All right, so once that's there, I'm just going to use my pliers to make sure that nothing's sticking out. I want to go ahead and do a couple things at this point. I want to make sure that my loops are facing the same direction. So I'll go ahead and grasp one loop with my plier, and I'll come around to this other side, and I'll just use my fingernail to point it up to make sure that they are facing the same direction. The second thing I want to do is grab both ends and start to curve it so it looks like a smile. And this will help to create that centerpiece nice and curved. Okay, and I'm double checking my pattern because I was talking and sometimes that just gets me out of focus, right? So far, so good though. So now we're ready to add on our silver silk stuff. So I'm going to grab my silver silk cords that we've got here, as well as the end caps that have the jump rings already attached to it. And what I'm going to do is insert the chain into each end cap, just one at a time. And once I've done that, I can go ahead and press. You want to make sure that the seam of your end cap is closed all the way. Make sure you're using pliers that have a protective coating. I like to use Tool Magic because it creates this really nice rubberized end. And so whenever I'm pressing down on the end cap, it doesn't have any scars or marks or nicks onto the actual finding itself. And it gives me a better grip too whenever I'm using it. So now I will simply match up to make sure that the logo is facing up on the other side here. Whenever I lay the chain down, that's what I'm looking for, is that flatness. See if I can do this at an angle so that you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. And making sure that this is very consistent to the other side that I just crimped. Once I'm satisfied with that, just give it a good press. And we'll simply do the same thing to the other side. It's pretty easy. You don't need any special tools other than the wide nose pliers. You can absolutely use chain nose pliers if you want. Just be careful when crimping it. Or if you've got Tool Magic handy, you can always use that too. But you don't need glue. Don't use glue with this because you won't need it. Okay, I'm just going to use my thumb to kind of straighten out the wire, and then I can go in and add in my last crimp here. Perfect. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is basically attach all this stuff together because it's just jump rings here. Okay, so I'll just simply separate, string through, and bring it together as such. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Perfect. So that is my design, and super easy to put together and make. Sometimes designs don't have to have a lot of technique. They just have to have a very strong, bold color story or an interesting texture that you're trying to highlight, which is the centerpiece of this design. So I really like it. I like the simplicity. I like the shimmer and pizzazz that only Jesse James Beats can bring to the table here. And to really elevate it with silver silk, it's always just a sweet pleasure. So I'm going to flip it back around to my camera. And I'm so glad I got to show this project to you. It's such a, again, just an easy like win for a Saturday that is today. And sometimes that's all we need, right? I think that's really the key to a secret life, a sweet life. I'll quit babbling now, and I just want to say it was so fun to show this technique to you guys and enjoyed hanging out with you. You can find more of my projects over on my YouTube channel. Now that we're getting quite a catalog built for Jesse James beads and using their beads with my silver silk and just elevating all of the designs with new techniques and ideas. You can also follow me on Instagram. There, I've got a big catalog of pictures that you can look through to find interesting ideas and other ways that you can use silver silk. And I've got 8 different lines of silver silk. So we're never gonna run out of inspiration, truly. Again, I enjoyed this tutorial with you guys, and I hope you'll tune in for the next one. And I will catch you guys again very soon. Mwah! Big